December 22nd, 2020. Just 5 days after turning 50, Stella Tennant, the bold, wild supermodel who had it all, took her own life. She came from royalty, walked for Chanel, and changed how we see beauty. But behind all the power was deep, quiet pain. She showed the world a strong face, but inside, she was breaking. What was the pressure that followed her? From palaces to Paris runways, until it finally became too much. Picture this: a 6'1" woman, shaved head, dressed in high fashion, now walking alone in the cold Scottish hills. If you've ever felt like people only love the version of you that isn't really you, this story will hurt in a way you'll understand. Because in the next few minutes, you'll see what the fashion world still doesn't talk about. This isn't just about beauty, it's about becoming a product and the heavy price of looking perfect. Stella Tennant was born in 1970 into a world of castles, titles, and high society. Her grandmother was a real duchess. Her family had power, money, and expectations. But Stella didn't want any of it. She didn't care about crowns or rules. At 16, she shaved her head. At 18, she stuck a safety pin through her nose. To her family, it was shocking. To her, it was freedom. She didn't want to fit into the fancy world she was born in. She wanted to be herself, wild, strange, and bold. And she didn't grow out of it. Her rebellion wasn't just a phase. It became her whole identity. She wore whatever she wanted, even a trash bag, to a formal party. Not to be funny, but to show she didn't care. Stella wasn't angry at fashion. She was angry at being told who to be. Have you ever felt like the world wants you to act a certain way, but it's not really you? That was her life. But here's the twist. The girl who didn't want to play the game became fashion's biggest star. So how did that happen? In 1993, Stella Tennant was just a student. She studied sculpture, not fashion. She wore what she wanted. She had a nose ring and short hair. Then one day, someone asked her to pose for British Vogue. She thought it would be fun, so she said yes. She didn't know how to model. She wasn't polished or perfect. But when the photos came out, people noticed. Stephen Maisel, one of the top fashion photographers, saw something in her. She looked different. Not like other models. She looked real. Then Karl Lagerfeld, the famous designer at Chanel, called. He made her the face of Chanel almost overnight. One week, she was in school. The next, she was walking for the biggest fashion house in the world. Why? Because she wasn't trying to fit in. She was just herself, bold, quiet, smart, and sharp. At first, it felt like magic. No acting, no pretending, just Stella, being Stella. But then something strange happened. People didn't want her to change. They wanted her to stay exactly the same forever. They wanted her to always be that cool, edgy girl, even if she didn't feel like that anymore. Imagine being famous for just being yourself, but then feeling like you can't grow, or change, or even have a bad day. She started to feel trapped. She was known for being authentic, but inside she felt more and more fake. Karl Lagerfeld once said she reminded him of Coco Chanel, strong, modern, untouchable. But Stella didn't feel strong. She felt like a version of herself the world wanted her to be. And that leads to a deeper question. What happens when being yourself becomes a job, and the world stops letting you be anything else? Stella Tennant became one of the busiest models in the world. She walked in up to 75 fashion shows each season. Her short buzz cut made her stand out. Her minimalist look became a trend. Designers loved how she made soft clothes feel strong, even dangerous. People said she was effortless, cool, real, different. But behind the cameras, things weren't so easy. She once shared that her natural look, the one people praised for being raw and easy, took hours to get right. Makeup, hair, styling, pressure. Everyone said, "You're amazing just as you are." But what they really meant was, don't change, ever. And that's where the pain started. The more the world wanted the real Stella, the more she felt like she was pretending. Like a bird trapped in a glass box, she could be seen, admired, even celebrated, but not free. She wasn't just wearing clothes. She was wearing an identity that didn't fully feel like hers anymore. A version of herself that others expected but didn't always match how she felt inside. The smile on the runway, it hid the stress. The cool stare in the photos, it covered exhaustion. She started to wonder, was she modeling fashion or just modeling a fantasy for everyone else? And slowly, that pressure built. Even when she succeeded, she felt trapped by that success. Even when she was praised, she felt distant from the person people thought she was. Because the truth is, being known for being yourself is hard, when that self has to stay perfect all the time. So now the question is, did Stella ever find a way to break out of the image the world built for her? Stella Tennant had enough of the spotlight. She stepped away, married photographer David Lasnett, moved to rural Scotland, raised 4 children. It was quiet, green, simple, no runways, no flashing lights, just school pickups and garden dirt. And for a while, it brought her something real: love, purpose, maybe even peace. She only modeled for brands she truly respected. No more chasing trends, no more pretending. But the fashion world didn't let go. The calls still came. The offers kept arriving. Because even in silence, Stella was wanted. Have you ever tried to leave something behind, but it kept pulling you back? That's what happened to her. The more she stayed away, the more people missed her. She became something else, a symbol of rebellion, a piece of fashion's memory. They called her the timeless rebel. Even when she wasn't modeling, they were still watching. Her quiet life became part of the story. Her absence became her brand. But that also meant she could never truly disappear. She once told a reporter she liked digging holes in the garden more than wearing expensive dresses. That was real. That was Stella. But the world already decided who she was. And the world doesn't change its story that easily. So here's the question. What happens when you finally create space for yourself and still feel empty in it? In 2020, Stella Tennant's world changed again. After 21 years of marriage, she and David separated. She moved back to her childhood home in Scotland. Alone, she was now 49 years old, surrounded by hills, old stone walls, and quiet beauty. But inside, there was only silence. Then came the pandemic. Lockdowns shut everything down. No visitors, no hugs, no relief from the stillness. She had almost no in-person support. Family later said she had been unwell. Have you ever felt like your world is falling apart, but everyone thinks you're fine because your life looks good from the outside? That was Stella. The world still saw her as strong, elegant, rebellious, a woman aging gracefully. But behind closed doors, she was unraveling. The questions she had buried for years, who am I? What do I want? Was it all worth it? Started getting louder. And she had no one right there to talk to. The fashion industry once gave her a voice, but now she couldn't even say the words, "Help me." She smiled in old photos, but behind her eyes was something heavy, something she kept hidden from everyone. Not even her closest friends knew what she was going through. And then just 5 days after her 50th birthday, Stella was gone. No note, no goodbye, just silence. So what was the one secret she never shared? What pain was too deep for words? Behind her calm, beautiful face, Stella Tennant was fighting a battle no one could see. She looked strong. She sounded fine. But inside she felt lost. She felt unseen, even by people who loved her. She felt disconnected from the world she once ruled. She felt forgotten. And she never said a word. She didn't give interviews about her mental health. She didn't tell friends. She didn't ask for help. Have you ever smiled while hurting inside because you didn't want to disappoint anyone? That was Stella. To the world, she had it all. Money, fame, family, respect. But what she didn't have was space to just be herself. The fashion world told her, be real, be rebellious, be exactly like we remember you. But what if she had changed? What if she wanted to be quiet, or messy, or just ordinary? The world didn't want that version. And after years of pretending, Stella wasn't just tired. She was emotionally drained. She had given so much to others but had nothing left for herself. Her name inspired a generation. Her face changed fashion. But even with all her success, she couldn't find a way to say, I need help. She wasn't a failure. She was exhausted. Her legacy gave strength to others, but never gave her permission to slow down, to rest, to change. And then, on December 22nd, 2020, just 5 days after turning 50, Stella Tennant's story ended. No scandal, no goodbye post, just silence. Because sometimes, the people who seem the strongest are the ones who are hurting the most. 5 days after she turned 50, Stella Tennant walked into her family's garden in Scotland and never came back. There were no goodbyes, no letters, no signs, just a silence. The same silence she had battled her whole life. She had once filled runways with power, given women a new kind of beauty, and turned fashion upside down. But now, she was gone. Her family later shared the truth. Stella had been struggling with mental illness for a long time. But like many who seem strong, she kept it private. She was the woman everyone looked up to, but who could she lean on? We often think the ones who look fine are okay, but sometimes they're just really good at hiding it. Stella had always been a rebel. She said no to rules, no to labels, no to the world's idea of perfect. But deep down, she also believed she had to stay strong forever. And that belief, it broke her. Even in her last days, she felt the pressure to be the icon, to be the inspiration, to be the one who always had it all together. But maybe what she needed most was the freedom to not be okay. She wasn't weak. She was just tired of pretending, of smiling when she wanted to cry, of being someone else's idea of perfect. And that's the truth too many people live with. You don't have to be famous to feel this way. You don't have to walk a runway to feel alone. You just have to be human. Stella's story is not just a fashion story. It's a human story, one we can all learn from. Because when someone feels like they can't show their pain, the silence can become deadly. Let her story remind us, check on the strong ones, listen to the quiet ones, and never be afraid to ask for help. The question now is, how many more do we lose before we learn to truly see each other? Stella Tennant didn't die because she failed. She died because she was never given space to fall. From the outside, her life looked perfect, famous, beautiful, strong. She was called a muse, an icon, a legend. But deep down, Stella didn't want any of that, not anymore. She didn't want to carry the pressure of being different or fearless. She didn't want to be the one always pushing boundaries. She just wanted to be human, to rest, to be soft, to be real. But no one saw that. They only saw the version they wanted, the strong, silent rebel. And so, she kept going, smiling through pain, working through sadness, hiding what hurt. Because being strong had become her full-time job. She made others feel like they could be themselves. She gave people hope. She helped others feel seen. But the truth is, Stella never really got to feel safe. She was always giving, but rarely received the same care in return. And maybe, if someone had looked past the headlines, past the clothes, the confidence, the fame, they would have seen what she truly needed. Not applause, not more photo shoots, just support. Just someone to say, it's okay to not be okay. We often say we love people for being different, but when they break under the weight of that difference, we don't know what to do. We celebrate their strength, but forget they're still fragile. Stella had everything except the freedom to be imperfect. So now we have to ask, how many more icons need to fall before we change what we think strength looks like? Because true strength isn't about always standing tall. Sometimes it's about being allowed to sit down and still be loved anyway. Stella Tennant didn't just wear clothes on a runway. She showed us what it meant to be brave. She stood tall with a shaved head. She smiled when the world didn't expect her to. She walked through rooms that didn't know what to do with someone like her and still took up space. But behind the lights, the cameras, and the headlines, she was also someone who needed quiet, who needed to feel safe, who needed to just be herself. Her story reminds us of something important. No photo, no headline, no perfect image is ever more important than someone's peace of mind. If you or someone you care about is hurting, even if they seem okay, start the conversation. Ask, reach out, listen, stay. Sometimes just showing up is what saves a life. Because the strongest people don't always ask for help, and the loudest cries are often silent. What part of Stella's story hit you the hardest? Was it the silence, the pressure, the loneliness? Let's talk in the comments, not just about Stella, but about how we treat the people we call strong.